Forget about purpose. You can't even know what you're here for. I don't even know if this conversation is real or if we're happening or if moment after moment after moment in your life, we're always at a crossroads. Like there's never not a crossroads. So the purpose-driven life is an anxiety-driven life, but a curiosity-driven life says, well, the world is dangerous and it's strange and I don't know what's going on and it's mysterious, but it is interesting.
This lady is called Elizabeth Gilbert.
Elizabeth Gilbert.
Brilliant mind behind Eat, Pray, Love.
Eat, Pray, Love.
Eat, Pray, Love.
Eat, Pray, Love.
Sold more than 10 million copies.
I'm talking about creative living. And creative living, in my definition, is a manner in which you live. Make your decisions based on curiosity rather than fear. If you continually make these decisions based on fear, your life will actually weirdly end up looking like everybody else's life.
Today, we're going beyond the books, beyond the fame, and into the depths of her mind and soul. I cannot wait for this conversation. Liz, welcome to the show.
Hello, darling. It is so nice to meet you. Thank you for that incredibly beautiful introduction. It makes me stammer.
Every bit was the truth. So, are you journey, seriously. Before Eat, Pray, Love, you were an award-winning writer, primarily for male-centric publications. How did that shape your voice as a writer, and what ultimately led to you to shift towards more of a personal storytelling?
Wow, what a great question. Let's just launch into it. So we're talking about 30 years ago. And 30 years ago, and I wish I could say it was entirely different today, but it's not. But it was definitely the case 30 years ago that men controlled culture, and if you wanted to be doing cool and interesting work, the men were the ones who were doing it. The men's magazines were publishing the best writers. Men were controlling the publishing industry. And so I was fixated on being where they were. I essentially wanted to live my life as though I were a dude. I wanted the freedoms that they had. I wanted the creativity that they had. I wanted the entitlement that they had. And so I spent a lot of my 20s around men. And I don't think that I was necessarily wrong to do it, because that's kind of where the action was happening.
Yeah.
Then what happened is that I more or less had a nervous breakdown.
Yep.
when my marriage ended and I needed to go on a deeply emotional journey, which I had not been doing in all those years that I'd been hanging around with men. And that brought me into another side of myself that became Eat, Pray, Love. And then suddenly I had millions of female readers. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've turned from being the woman who is like the guy's woman to the woman who's the woman's woman. And now I'm just the person who's the person's person.
I love that. Through that, your journey across, look, who doesn't know Eat, Pray, Love, seriously, but your journey across Italy, Bali and India redefined love, like it really did, spirituality and self for yourself. But what is one lesson from that time that you think still holds true today?
There's a line I quote in the book, and it's maybe my favorite line in all of history. It comes from the Bhagavad Gita, from the ancient Indian sacred text. And it says that it is better to live your own life imperfectly than to live a perfect imitation of somebody else's life. It's really important. And that is the lesson, because the reason I had that nervous breakdown was because I had put all my energy into living a life that was a perfect imitation of what I had been taught a woman is supposed to be. And that's how I ended up married and in a house in the suburbs. And, we were supposed to start a family, and I was doing everything exactly the way I had been told, and it almost killed me. And every time I've lived my life doing the thing that culture and family taught me were respectable and responsible, it's almost killed me. And every time I've lived my own life, I've thrived and bloomed. So that's the lesson. Better to live your own life imperfectly than a perfect imitation of somebody else's.
It's so true, isn't it? I think I'd say 99% of society today is not living their true authentic self, but they're living their life according to societal norm. And they're too scared to get out of that. Do you know what I mean? But
it's scary, because then people don't approve of you, and that's frightening. We are a social animal, and so it's not a meaningless fear, and it's something that I still have to wrestle with at times. Where it's like, I'm really going to earn some disapproval by doing this.
Yeah.
And that actually feels like an existential threat, because it's like, you know, we're a tribe animal and we're a communal animal and we need each other to survive. So I don't want to say that it's a lighthearted or simple thing to do. But the alternative for me is that I always, but only always, end up going into such incredible depression and despair when I live the way I'm supposed to live, that I can't do it.
Yeah, I completely get it. And I think, like I said, so many people are in the same boat, but are too scared to take that leap of faith, which you did. And I mean, you seriously have followed the traditional path, you know, marriage, contemplating having kids, you know, and you've redefined love and relationships as well. I mean, losing Raya must have been one of the most soul-shaking experiences of your life. What surprised you most about grief? And how did you turn pain into purpose?
Well, what surprised me most about grief was how uncomfortable it was.
Yeah.
It is, I experienced it somewhat like a head injury.
Really?
You know, I really felt like I had trouble speaking. I had trouble, it's so jarring. It is so, I'm using the word existential again, but it is so existentially jarring to have somebody who was there not be there. You know, it's foundationally, it rattles you at your foundation. I also was surprised in my grief at how much anger my grief contained. I don't identify typically as an extremely angry person. I'm comfortable with like sweet sorrow. I'm comfortable with sadness and tears. I'm not comfortable with blinding rage. And I felt a lot of blinding rage during the time of my grief. And that was extremely uncomfortable. I was so angry that my beloved had been taken away. I was also angry at her for things that she did before she died. I was angry at her family. I was angry at my family. I was angry at the world. I was angry at God. I was angry at myself. And I was like, oh, this is the furnace. This is incredibly uncomfortable. But I think that's part of the grieving process. Grief is the most uncomfortable set of feelings you can have. And for me, of course, it would end up being angry. How did I turn that into purpose? I don't tend to use the word purpose because I feel like it's a word we abuse ourselves with. I feel like everybody I know has purpose anxiety, and it causes enormous amounts of pain.
Oh, true.
So I could say how I turned it into creativity. How I turned it into creativity was by feeling my feelings without medicating them away, which is a big thing, not running away from those feelings, not running out of the furnace. I started writing a lot of poetry during that time. I danced a lot when I was grieving. The first year after Rhea died, I danced every single day because I had so much strange energy in my body. And so I would actually just put on like my song app and just say like, randomly pick a song. And every morning, the first thing I would do is dance. It also kind of like shifted me because sometimes it would be like a really funny song. And I'd be like, I guess we're dancing to this today. You know, like I would just let the universe choose.
I love that.
And I wrote my way through it. And I my spiritual journey certainly deepened a lot because as angry as I was at what I called God, I also needed to be in dialogue with that force at a much more intimate, real level. I would say the main thing was that I didn't run away from it.
Yeah, which is, again, unusual because people either medicate or turn to drugs and alcohol to suppress that feeling because it is daunting. It's a feeling that many people don't want to face, you know, and the fact.
Here's the thing about, you're right. Here's the thing about it though, that I learned is it comes in waves. People always talk about grief coming in waves.
Yes.
I've never had a baby, but I suspect it's very similar to labor pains where it's like, you're okay. And then you're knocked
100%,
out. And then weirdly, you're okay. And then you're knocked out. And then weirdly, you're okay. And then you're knocked out. And so a lot of it was, a friend of mine called it a bow down moment. When those waves of grief come, you bow down, you surrender, you go limp, and you let it break over you like a wave because it actually will. And then you'll be sobbing on the floor in a heap. And then 15 minutes later, you'll be like, I'm hungry. I need a sandwich. I'm going to take a shower. Like if you just let it happen to you, it will move through you. It'll move that energy through you, and then you can carry on until the next one.
Is it getting easier day by day, or what do you think?
Oh yeah, year by year. Yeah, for sure. And then comes the part where I kind of miss the grief.
Really?
You know, because it was so intense that it was a really deep and immediate connection to her. And the healing, this is why you don't want to rush your healing either. Like when I was in it, all I wanted was to be out of it. And now that I'm out of it, I'm like, gosh, sometimes I'll go a whole day without thinking of Rhea, you know, and that feels like its own kind of sadness. Like, oh, I kind of miss when I was sobbing on the floor. I actually felt a little closer to her then. But that's humanity. That's what they call in the Sanskrit samsara. You always want what you don't got.
Yes. So true. Oh my God. So
Whatever it is, it's like, oh, now it's too hot. Oh, now it's too cold. It's like this general dissatisfaction. Like, now I want my grief back. You know, now I can't feel her anymore.
I want it. Oh my God, that's so true. I mean, like your life has been a journey that literally has been stripped away. That has stripped away societal expectations, relationships, and even parts of your identity to uncover your true self. What do you think has been the most profound rebirth moment in your life, and how did it change you?
I'm in it now. I'm in the most profound rebirth moment of my life now. So I'm 55. Remember, how old am I? And for the last nearly 6 years, I've been, as an act of self-reclamation, exploration, creativity, and spirituality, I've been celibate. And that's been a decision that I've made because I had basically a 35-year uninterrupted bender of just going from person to person to person to person to person to person. Wow. And always knowing, and I don't regret that, you know, I loved those people, but there's always a sense like the Quakers talk about the still, silent, small voice. There's a still, small voice, no matter how wonderful those relationships were at various times, where I felt like there was something in me that I was abandoning and betraying because I was so focused on the other person. And giving myself this gift in my 50s of just saying, like, we're just gonna do this alone. Not alone. I have a million friends. We're gonna do this without a romantic partner.
Yes.
And this tremendous blooming is happening in my life. As a result, I'm in the richest creative and spiritual aspect of my life right now. Dr. Joe Dispenza recently gave a talk about what happens to a woman's brain when she doesn't live with someone, particularly when she doesn't live with a man. Whole new avenues open up in your brain because you're not focused completely on being responsive to this other person. You can actually learn how to feel your own sensations and your own feelings. You can, the problem-solving parts of your brain open up where you're actually figuring out all your own stuff, the self-accountability, the self-reliance, the creativity. So I'm feeling like this has been the most generative reset that I've ever been in, and I'm not in a hurry to give it up. It's been pretty awesome.
Quite envious, to be honest, listening to all that, because it's true. I mean, I'm a wife and mother, and you have to literally put your life on hold. You've got 3 children. Like I was saying to someone else the other day, I was focusing on my work and my projects, and within an instant, something happened I had to attend to something for my youngest son, and I had to stop everything. So your life feels like an up and down roller coaster pretty much every single day. And if you're not catering for your children, it's your husband, it's a household. It's like, I feel as though, I know so many women can relate, we come last. And I think
always. And you were trained to. You were trained to. And what is considered to be a normal, respectable, responsible woman is a woman who puts herself last.
Exactly.
I mean, you've got thousands of years of generational training on that, you know, and you're trained to be in a constant state of response to the needs of others. And that's the job description, you know, and I'm excusing myself from it.
I love it. Like I said, I think I'm so envious. And I turned 50 last year, and I did make a decision to shift the way I do things. And this year particularly, we're almost at the end of January, and so much has happened in 1 month. But it's great because it made me reevaluate, okay, I need to change a few things because I need to put myself first as well. So
good. Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. Checking in with your own body before you say yes.
Yes.
Is my body saying no, but my voice is saying yes?
And learning to say no more often.
Here's a trick, and it's a very hard one because I'm an automatic yes.
Yes.
I'm always an automatic yes. I was trained to be a yes.
Yes.
I want your love, approval, and validation and acceptance. I want to be of service. So I always say the yes. And I've been learning how to go back, because then once I say the yes, I'm like, I'm doomed to have to do this because I said yes.
Yeah.
I'm learning to go back to people and say, listen, I have an amends to make to you. I said an immediate yes to that thing without checking with myself to see whether that was a sincere yes. And I actually really don't want to do this.
Really?
I don't have the time. Yeah. So because you can actually take a yes back. You have to be respectful about it and acknowledge it and take accountability for the fact like that was wrong of me. I'm sorry for the inconvenience that's brought to you, but I'm actually not going to be able to do this thing that I told you that I was going to be able to do. And it was only because I wanted to please you that I said it.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to say this because I don't want you to be displeased with me, but this is the actual truth.
Oh, wow. I love that. I really do. And I think that takes a lot of courage, though. It's a lot of courage to do that.
Yeah. Oh, I hate it.
But it's great because it's honoring you.
Yeah.
You're honoring.
And if I tried to not put myself in those situations by slowing down before I say the yes.
Yeah.
But I will still jump into a yes and then have to take it back sometimes. But that's okay. You're allowed to make mistakes. You're allowed to change your mind. Yeah. You're allowed to say yes and then be like, actually, I don't want to. Yeah. You know how many relationships I've ended up with because there was a no inside of me and I suppressed it.
Wow.
And then I said yes. And then I was like, well, now we're here.
Oh, wow.
And now we're here. And now we're going to be together for 4 years now because I said a yes when I actually kind of meant no. And now I can't take it back. It's wild.
Big lesson. You know what I absolutely love? Your dear love letters. You've been writing these letters for years. How did that practice come about and how has that evolved over time?
So this is a practice, it's a spiritual and emotional practice that I've been doing every day for almost 20 years, where I write myself a letter every morning from the spirit of unconditional love. And the prompt is, dear love, what would you have me know today? And then you imagine, what would unconditional love want you to know this day? If it could speak to you, what would it want to tell you? And then you download that answer and you write it down. And I govern my whole life on those letters now. And I started this project on Substack last year where I'm teaching people how to do it because it's been such a transformative experience in my life. So we've got 160,000 people on this Substack newsletter writing themselves letters from unconditional love.
Here's 120,000.
I know it's growing exponentially. And the thing that I love about that is that I read those letters. People post them in the comments that they're downloading from the spirit of unconditional love. And they are exactly the same as mine. And what that teaches me is that there is something that wants to communicate to us. Yeah. That there's certain themes that come up again and again in these letters. There's some spirit in this cosmos that wants us to know a couple things. And what it seems to want us to know are, you don't actually have to change at all to be worthy of being loved. Because so much of my life is like, I'm going to fix, change, modify, and adapt and grow and evolve. And this voice is like, well, you can if you want, but we actually love you. We love you right now. Like, we love you right now. We don't love some future version of you. We love you right now. That voice wants us to try a lot less hard. And it wants us to know that there's nothing we have ever done in the past, no matter how shameful and horrific, that could cost us that love. And there's nothing we could ever do in the future that could cost us that love. And it wants us to know that it understands. I know. It wants us to know that it understands that it is very, very difficult to be here. Like it doesn't take lightly, this voice, this presence doesn't take lightly what a difficult assignment it is to be a soul having a journey in a human body in Earth School. And it wants us to know that we're doing very well, like that we are doing very well on a very, very hard mission, and that we're not alone. And those are the things that and that's what that voice has been telling me for 20 years. And now I'm reading people's letters from all over the world and I'm hearing it. Those themes come back again and again and again. And it's like, Something wants us to know that we can't do this wrong, no matter how much it looks like we're doing it wrong. You can't do it wrong. You really can't.
That really touched my soul. I mean, I got all emotional. But just hearing you say that, and I think so many people need to hear that, because we're all struggling, and I use the word struggling because sometimes it actually does feel like a struggle to live the perfect life, because we don't want to get to the end of our life and have the regret, oh, I wish I did this and I wish I did that. And to hear you say those words, it kind of gives you permission to fail, or to go, hey, you know what? I'm human. I make mistakes. I'm just doing the best I can. And yeah, that really touched me. So I guess I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to start crying now.
Oh, well, it is really good news to know that.
Yeah.
Because the shame otherwise will take you apart.
Yeah.
And it is, and I have a friend, my friend Rob Bell always says, where did you get the memo that said that you were supposed to get this thing right straight out of the gate? Yes. This is my first time. This is my first time in this body. I don't know if it's my first time on earth, but it's my first time in this family. It's my first time in this body. It's my first time in this experience. It's like, I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do this. And I wake up every day not knowing how to do this. And love says, well, that's all right. You're not supposed to know how to do it. Yeah. You're having an interesting experience in Earth School. The curriculum is very difficult. But whatever happens, you're going to learn something from it. And that's good enough. Yeah. Who doesn't need to hear that?
Oh, I love that. I really do. Reinvention. I think your title should be Reinvention. Reinvention is a constant theme in your life for people afraid to shed their old identity, whether in love, career, or self. What advice would you have for them?
I had just the weirdest thought come to my mind, which is if it's your real identity, you can't shed it. It's the only thing I've ever shed are my false identities.
Right. Interesting.
Right. So I've never shed my identity. I've shed my personas. I've shed masks that I was wearing. I'm getting closer and closer to my identity. But in order to do so, I've had to shed a lot of masks. And once again, I love that you say that I'm like the face of reinvention. I'm the least likely person who ever should have become that, because nobody wants to be loved more than me. Nobody wants to be approved of more than me. I am not a rebel. I am never going to kick over the wasp's nest. I am never going to flip over the apple cart. I don't want there to be disruption. I don't like chaos. I don't like disruption. And I don't like being disapproved of. I am obedient. I am a rule follower. I am a people pleaser. That is what I came in imprinted with in this lifetime. So it is highly unlikely that I would ever have become, for anybody, a role model of reinvent, be willing to risk everything, have everybody be upset with you. I only do it because when I don't do it, I want to kill myself. And I don't say kill myself lightly.
Really?
When I live in any way that is inauthentic, I find myself suddenly going to doctor's offices and asking for prescriptions.
Wow.
And I know now that if I am longing for some sort of a prescription or some sort of a drug, legal or illegal, that will make me be able to get through the day okay, I know that it means that there is something I am not telling the truth about.
Wow. What? That I think can apply to many people.
And it's time. And it's and then I look in my soul and I'm like, what are you not telling the truth about? And then I'm like, oh no, don't make me say that. Oh, come on. I've told so many hard truths. Just give me a prescription. Just give me a prescription so I don't have to tell the truth.
Oh my.
And then I'm like, here we go again, But every single time I do that and I have to reinvent, I get closer and closer to something pretty magical.
Wow. I love that. Your life is, I mean, watch from an outside perspective looking in, there's so many transformations, but there's so many learning lessons within it. And I think it's great that you're going through them because we're learning from you. So you're doing the hard work and we're benefiting. So it's just, it's great to watch from an outside perspective. It might be very hard for yourself, obviously, but it's sort of, you know how they say the older child, you know, learns from everything, and then the second and the third. And so, you know, they learn from the first. That's what we're kind of learning from you, Liz.
Oh God, I hope you do and you don't have to do the shit. Sorry.
Exactly. So true. We're learning. So you're in Australia right now, and I'm so
Yes.
for that. I mean, today's the weather's not that fabulous, but you've had a couple of great days here when the sun's out. It's beautiful, and you're here for your speaking and teaching tour across Australia and New Zealand. What can people expect on your tour? And for those who still want to attend, where can they book tickets and how can they connect with you?
Oh, well, thank you for asking. If you go to elizabethgilbert.com, my full name.com, and you go to the events page, you can see all of the tickets for all of the stops. I'm going to Sydney and Melbourne and Adelaide and Brizzy and Hobart and Auckland. I don't know if Auckland has a nickname.
Yeah.
And I will be talking about something that I call the spirit of creative living. And that is very different. I'm hearing some of you already being like, I don't have a creative bone in my body. I'm not a creative person. It doesn't apply to me. I'm not talking about that very narrow definition of creativity, which I object to anyway, because by the way, you do have nothing but creative bones in your body.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about becoming an artist or a writer or a musician or a dancer or any of these sort of thin slice ideas of what we have about creativity. I'm talking about creative living. And creative living, in my definition, is a manner in which you live. And that manner is that you routinely make your decisions based on curiosity rather than fear. So moment after moment after moment in your life, we're always at a crossroads. Like there's never not a crossroads. We're always at a crossroads. The crossroads just keep unfolding in front of us as we walk. And moment after moment, we stand at these crossroads where on one side, there's the path of fear. And on the other side, there's the path of curiosity. And if you continually make these decisions based on fear, your life will actually weirdly end up looking like everybody else's life.
Yes.
And their life will look like yours. And everything is kind of in an echo chamber of this sort of, it's safe, but it isn't really because there's no contentment and there's no joy and there's no feeling in there.
Yeah.
It's not really safe. But if you continually make your decisions based on curiosity, what happens is that your life doesn't look like anybody else's life because your curiosities are not the same as anybody else's curiosities. And I am much more interested in people looking at what they're curious about than looking in for some sort of purpose. I forget about purpose. You can't even know what you're here for. So like, don't even worry about it. Like, we don't even know I don't even know if this conversation is real or if we're happening or if I'm just a hologram. We have no idea what's actually happening here. So the purpose-driven life is an anxiety-driven life. But a curiosity-driven life says, well, the world is dangerous and it's strange and I don't know what's going on and it's mysterious, but it is interesting.
I love that.
And what do I find to be the very most interesting thing that I'm seeing right now? And can I move toward that? And if you live a life based on curiosity rather than fear, your life itself becomes the work of art. So it doesn't matter if you become an artist. It doesn't matter if you produce anything. Your life itself becomes a work of art because it won't look like anything else. That's what I'll be talking about.
I am so excited to see the transformation because even with the 1 minute of you just talking about that, it really makes you think of moving forward in a different way as opposed to what you've been doing before. So excited. Okay, so this is the last question. And to be honest, I love this question because it gives me an insight of you as a person. And yes, I'll just tell you the question. So to wrap up the interview, if you could choose one song that truly touches your soul, whether it represents your character, your journey so far, or the person you're aspiring to become, what would that be and why? and if you have the courage to sing it, that'd be even more amazing.
Oh, you do not have to ask me twice to sing a song. The song will be Total Eclipse of the Heart.
Oh, wow. I know that.
And Turn around every now and then. I get a little bit tired and I dream of something wild. Turn around. This is my go-to song in karaoke. And I need you now tonight. Because more than ever, and if you only hold me tight, we'll be holding on forever. Making it right. We'll never be wrong together. We can make it to the end of the line. Your love is like a shadow on me all of the time. I won't stop. And it's a 9-minute song, so you should probably make me stop. But that is I sing that song any chance I get. And I always did it as a joke because it's so dramatic. And like, it always ends when I do it in karaoke with me, like rolling on the floor, like going from lap to lap of person in the bar. Like it's a big, so it represents me because it's big and dramatic, and I am big and dramatic. And it's fun to sing. And I feel like life is fun to sing. But it also represents me because every now and then I fall apart, and no matter how many times I think I have got this thing locked down and nailed, every now and then I fall apart and I realize that is actually my path. And then I have to turn around and find my bright eyes again and find my way back to center. And that's my learning journey. And I think it's probably, as much as I dread the next time I fall apart, it's probably going to be like that as long as I'm here.
Look, everyone's the same. Everyone's in the same boat, but you're the only one again to really see that for what it is. Liz, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you this morning. Thank you, Liz. I really appreciate you, and I will see you on the weekend, Saturday.
See you then.